At Thanksgiving, my mom lifted her glass and said with a proud smile, "Your sister's wedding was perfect. So, when's yours?" I didn't blink. I just looked straight at her and said, "I already had mine." That's when the whole table froze. Dad frowned and said, "What do you mean?" "We never got an invitation." So I reached into my bag, pulled out the delivery receipts, all signed for. Suddenly, silence. Because now, I finally knew who took them. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. My name's Luna, and before that moment, I thought betrayal was something you saw in movies or read about online. I never imagined it would come from the people sitting across from me, my own family. Thanksgiving was supposed to feel warm, familiar, full of laughter, mashed potatoes, and my mom's famous stuffing, not cold, tense, and full of lies. But that day, everything flipped. Let me take you back. Growing up, I was the older sister, the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who never caused problems. My younger sister, Ava, on the other hand, was the center of attention from the moment she could walk. She was loud, opinionated, sparkly, like fireworks in human form. My parents adored her. Everything she did was perfect, even when it wasn't. Me? I was invisible unless they needed something. Still, I tried not to let it bother me. Every family has a favorite, right? Some hide it better than others. Mine didn't bother hiding at all. When I met Ethan, everything changed. He wasn't like most people. He didn't compare me to Ava. He didn't make me feel boring or second best. He saw me, really saw me. We started dating in college, and by the time we both landed stable jobs, getting married felt natural, easy, right? So when we finally got engaged, I was over the moon. And for once, I thought maybe, just maybe, my family would be proud of me. I imagined my mom crying happy tears, my dad giving Ethan a firm handshake, Ava complaining but pretending to be supportive. But none of that happened. From the moment I told them, something felt off. Mom said, "Oh, really? Already?" Dad raised an eyebrow and asked, "Why rush? Weddings take planning." Ava? She just smirked and said, "Well, I guess not everyone wants a big wedding." I brushed it off. Maybe they were surprised. Maybe they just needed time. But the months leading up to my wedding were nothing like I pictured. While I worked hard, planned every detail, and saved every penny, my family never offered help, never asked questions, never showed interest. Still, I convinced myself it didn't matter. People love in different ways, right? But as the wedding got closer, I noticed something even stranger. No one responded to the invitations. Not my parents, not Ava, nobody. At first, I thought maybe the mail got delayed. Then maybe they were waiting to surprise me. Then maybe they just didn't care. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. So I contacted the delivery service. And when they sent copies of the signatures, there it was. All the envelopes, signed for by someone with the same initials. A.W. Ava Williams. My sister. She intercepted every single one. Still, a small part of me hoped it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she meant to give them to my parents and forgot. Maybe she thought it was a joke. But when my wedding day came and went, no call, no message, no congratulations, it became clear. It wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Maybe she did it because she couldn't stand not being the star. Maybe she couldn't accept that for once. The spotlight wasn't hers. But I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. Instead, I cried that night, not because they weren't there, but because I finally understood something painful. I had never been part of the family. I had been an accessory, useful when needed, ignored when not. So I made a decision. I would stop chasing people who didn't want me. Weeks passed. Months. I didn't bring it up, not to my mom, not to my dad, and definitely not to Ava. I waited. And then, Thanksgiving came. Everyone was in a good mood. The food smelled amazing. The table was full. Laughter echoed through the house like nothing had ever happened. Mom lifted her glass and said the sentence that changed everything. "Your sister's wedding was beautiful. So, Luna, when's yours?" The room expected me to smile. laugh it off, play the part. But I was done playing. So I spoke. And when I placed those delivery receipts on the table and everyone saw Ava's signature, her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Because in that moment she knew. I wasn't quiet anymore. And I wasn't letting it go. Not this time. After I dropped those delivery receipts onto the table, the silence felt heavy, almost suffocating. No one moved. No one breathed. The only sound in the room was the faint ticking of the clock hanging above the fireplace. Ava stared down at the papers like they were something poisonous, her face slowly flushing red. My mom was the first to break. She forced a laugh, awkward, shaky, fake. "Come on, Luna," she said, waving her hand as if she could erase reality with a gesture. "This must be some misunderstanding. You probably sent them to the wrong address." I didn't blink.
No.
The addresses were correct. The delivery service confirmed it. And those, I pointed to the receipts, prove every invitation arrived. Someone just made sure no one saw them. Dad leaned forward, squinting. He picked one up and held it closer to his face. "That's Ava's signature," he muttered. Ava finally snapped out of her frozen state. She crossed her arms, lifted her chin, and said, "So what? Maybe I signed for them because I was home. That doesn't mean I did anything wrong." My voice stayed calm, colder than ice. "So where did they go?" Her mouth opened, but no answer followed. She wasn't used to me asking questions. She wasn't used to me challenging her. She was used to winning. Mom jumped in again, desperate to restore control. "Even if something happened, you should have told us earlier. You can't expect us to just know." I felt something deep inside me, the part of me that used to beg for their love, finally shut off. "You did know," I said softly. "Or at least you never asked. You never checked in. You didn't call. You didn't ask about plans, dates, venues, nothing." Dad set the paper down, rubbed his forehead, and sighed. "Well, why didn't you postpone it if we weren't coming?" That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because it wasn't confusion. It was entitlement. Like they believed my wedding didn't matter unless they were in it. My chest tightened, but I didn't let my voice shake. "Because my wedding wasn't about you," I replied. "It was about me and Ethan." My husband reached under the table and squeezed my hand, a silent reminder that at least one person in that room chose me. Ava scoffed. "So dramatic. You act like we ruined your life." I finally turned to her fully.
No, Ava.
"You didn't ruin my life. You just reminded me what I meant to you." Her mascaraed eyes narrowed. "Oh, please. You always think you're some victim. Newsflash, no one ignored your wedding out of spite. I just forgot to give them the letters." "Okay." My jaw tightened. "You forgot 27 times?" She looked away. And there it was, the truth she wouldn't speak. She didn't forget. She never intended for anyone to be there. Because she couldn't stand not being celebrated. Couldn't stand the idea that for one day, just one, I wasn't invisible. The room stayed quiet again. This time it wasn't awkward. It was revealing. Everyone was realizing what I had already lived through. I wasn't part of this family. I was tolerated. Dad finally spoke, but his tone wasn't apologetic. It was annoyed. "So, what do you want, Luna? An apology? To make a scene at Thanksgiving?" I took a slow breath.
No, Dad.
"I don't want an apology." Ava smirked. "Good. Because you're not getting one." I looked directly at her. "I don't want anything from you anymore." Her smirk faded. Because that, losing power, was the thing she feared most. I stood up from the table. My mom rushed to fix the situation. "Honey, don't be dramatic.
Sit. Eat.
Let's just move on." I shook my head.
No.
"You don't get to erase this. You don't get to act like nothing happened." She frowned, her voice sharp now. "You're overreacting." I laughed, just once bitterly. That's the problem. For years, I reacted less than I should have. This time, I'm reacting just enough. No one stopped me when I walked away from the table. Not even out of politeness. Not even out of guilt. That told me everything I needed to know. When we got home that night, I sat on the couch still wearing my coat. Ethan sat beside me quietly. He knew I needed silence to unpack everything spinning in my head. After a moment, he asked softly, "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly.
Yeah.
For the first time, I think I am. Because pain felt different now. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't longing. It wasn't disappointment. It was clarity. I finally saw the truth without excuses. And clarity? Clarity is powerful. Because once you know who someone really is, you can finally decide what to do with them. And that's when the real revenge began. Not loud, not messy, not dramatic, but deliberate, calculated, quiet. The way they underestimated me. After that Thanksgiving dinner, something shifted inside me. For years, I had been begging for scraps of affection, chasing approval, hoping that one day my family would finally see me, not as background decoration, not as the other daughter, but as someone worthy of love, respect, acknowledgement. But that night, I stopped hoping. And when hope leaves, clarity enters. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to post dramatic family rants on Facebook or send angry paragraphs. No, that's never been my style. My revenge would be quiet, measured, inescapable, because the best revenge isn't anger. It's absence. And the moment I removed myself from their world, things would start shifting in ways they never expected. A week after Thanksgiving, Ava texted me.
No apology. No accountability.
Just one line. Mom wants to know if you're coming for Christmas. I stared at the message for a long time. Old Luna would have said yes immediately just to avoid tension. But new Luna? New Luna knew better. So I typed back.
No.
I already made other plans. She replied instantly. You always make things difficult. I didn't respond. The silence was louder than anything I could have written. 2 weeks later, my mom called. I let it ring twice before answering. Her tone was clipped, controlled, but underneath it, there was something new. Uncertainty. So, she said, Ava says you aren't coming for Christmas. Why? I kept my voice steady. I'm spending the holidays with people who want me there. There was a pause, long enough for truth to settle like dust. That's unnecessary, she finally muttered. No, I said softly. It's overdue. Mom exhaled sharply, frustrated. You can't punish your family for one disagreement. I closed my eyes. Mom, you didn't just miss my wedding.
You never asked about it.
You never checked in. You never even asked how it went. That's not a disagreement. That's neglect. Another silence. Then her voice dropped, defensive and cold.
Fine.
Suit yourself. And she hung up. Christmas Eve came. My phone?
Silent.
No calls. No text. Nothing. And strangely, it didn't hurt. It felt like confirmation. Proof that I'd been holding on to a relationship only I cared about. Instead, Ethan and I spent Christmas with his family. His mom gave me a sweater and hugged me like she actually meant it. His dad poured me hot cocoa and asked about my job. His little niece drew a picture of us and handed it to me proudly. It was simple, normal,
warm.
And I realized something. Family isn't DNA. Family is effort. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. I focused on my marriage, my career, my life. Without constant emotional drain from my family, I thrived.
For the first time, I felt balanced, seen, whole.
But distance does something interesting. It makes other people uncomfortable. Because suddenly, the person they pushed aside isn't waiting at the door anymore. Suddenly, their control slips. And that's when they panic. In early summer, I got another message, this time from my dad.
Short.
Blunt. We need to talk. I didn't reply. The next day, another message. Your sister needs help. Call us. The old me would have called instantly. But new Luna?
No.
2 days later, Ava messaged. Are you ignoring us? I typed one word. Yes. A minute later, Her bubble appeared again. Listen, I made a mistake. Okay? I didn't think it mattered. Can you drop this now? My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. There was no satisfaction, just clarity. I responded. You didn't forget the invitations. You hid them. And it mattered to me. You just didn't care. She read it. Didn't reply. 2 more weeks passed. Then, one afternoon while I was working, Ethan walked into my office holding the phone. It's your mom, he whispered. I took it with a steady breath. Her voice was different.
Soft. Tired.
Luna, honey, things aren't good. I leaned back in my chair. What happened? She hesitated, then finally said it. Ava's fiancé called off the wedding. And just like that, everything made sense. The silence. The sudden contact. The we need to talk. They didn't care because they missed me. They cared because they needed something. Mom continued, voice cracking. She's devastated. She said you might know how to fix this. There it was. The irony. The sister who ruined my wedding wanted my help to save hers. I closed my eyes, letting the moment settle. When I spoke, my voice was calm, gentle even. I'm sorry she's hurting. Mom exhaled like she expected me to step in. But then I added, but it's not my problem. She sucked in a breath. What does that mean? It means, I said quietly, for once in my life, I choose me. And then, I hung up.
No yelling. No arguing.
Just closure. Not the emotional kind. The boundary kind. But this story wasn't over. Because karma? Karma always shows up. And when it does, it asks one question. Were you watching? The call ended, and for the first time in years, I felt light, like I'd finally walked out of a room I'd been trapped in my whole life. I set my phone down and just sat there in the quiet, listening to my own breathing. Ethan walked over, leaned against the counter, and asked gently, You okay? I nodded.
Yeah.
I finally said the thing I was always afraid to say. He smiled, not a proud smile, but an understanding one. Boundaries aren't revenge, he said. They're protection. The revenge is when people realize they can't cross them anymore. I thought about that for days. Because he was right. My silence, my distance, my refusal to fix what I didn't break, that was the revenge. 3 weeks passed. The messages slowed. The calls stopped. And Ava? She disappeared from my inbox completely.
But I didn't ask why.
I wasn't part of their chaos anymore. I thought the story had already reached its full circle. Hurt, realization, separation. But life has a way of saving the most poetic part for later. That moment came in late summer. I was sitting in a small downtown cafe, working on some documents, when I heard someone clear their throat beside me. I looked up.
Ava.
Except not the version I grew up with. Not the perfectly polished girl with flawless mascara and a high ponytail and a voice full of sarcasm. She looked worn out. Smaller. Human. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying for days. She held a coffee cup with both hands like she needed it to steady herself. Can I sit? She asked. I paused, then nodded. She sat across from me, quiet at first. Not defensive. Not arrogant. Just tired. I didn't expect to see you here, I said softly. She let out a short breath, like a shaky half-laugh.
Yeah.
I figured. A long silence formed between us, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unsaid history. Finally, she spoke. I didn't think you'd cut us off. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't think there would be consequences? She swallowed hard.
No.
I guess I didn't. Another silence. Then the words I never thought I'd hear. I'm sorry. I didn't rush to accept it. Instead, I waited. She stared at the table as she continued. When you got engaged, I panicked. I know how messed up that sounds, but I always thought I'd be first. Mom and Dad always talked about my wedding, never yours. So, when you suddenly got engaged before me. She hesitated. I felt like someone took something that was supposed to be mine. I breathed slowly. So you took my invitations? She nodded without lifting her gaze. And when the wedding day came and nobody called you, she cut herself off, voice breaking. I told myself you didn't care. I told myself maybe you preferred it that way. I kept my tone calm. You knew I cared.
She nodded again.
And I told myself if I just ignored it long enough, you'd get over it. You always did. That sentence wasn't said with pride. It was said with regret. Then she finally looked up, her eyes glossy with tears. But then my fiancé left. And suddenly, I understood something. Her voice shook. I wasn't just jealous of your wedding. I was jealous because you didn't beg for love. You didn't chase validation. You didn't crumble when you were ignored. You built a life anyway. A tear slipped down her cheek. And now I'm the one alone. I stayed quiet. Because this moment wasn't about comforting her. It was about truth. She took a shaky breath. I know I can't undo what I did. I can't fix it. But I need you to know. I knew it would hurt you. And I did it anyway. There it was. The real confession. Not excuses. Not excuses dressed as apologies.
Truth.
Raw and ugly. I leaned back slightly. Ava, forgiveness isn't a free pass. It's not something you get because you regret getting caught. It's something earned through change. She nodded slowly, wiping her face. I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it. We sat there a moment longer. She stood to leave. But before she walked away, I said one final sentence, not cruel, not emotional, just honest. Ava, I don't hate you, but I don't trust you. And trust isn't rebuilt with words, it's rebuilt with time. She nodded, and for the first time in our lives, she didn't argue. She just whispered, I hope one day I earn it. And then she walked out. I watched her go. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with peace. Because revenge wasn't the silence. It wasn't the distance. It wasn't even the confrontation. The real revenge was growth.
Mine.
Not hers. After Ava walked out of that cafe, I sat there for a long time, processing everything. The apology, the tears, the truth, all of it. Years of resentment and confusion had finally been spoken aloud, and strangely, I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt lighter. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't, but because the truth finally had a voice. For so long, I thought closure meant reconciliation. I thought it meant hugs, apologies, tears, and a perfect family photo at the end. But sitting there in the soft clinking of coffee cups and quiet music, I realized something. Closure isn't always reunion. Sometimes closure is understanding. The next few months were calm, peaceful, predictable in a good way.
No unexpected texts.
No guilt-driven calls. No drama hidden behind holidays or expectations. Just space, clean, quiet space, where my life was finally allowed to exist on its own terms. Ethan and I traveled. We redecorated our home. We celebrated our marriage, the one no one showed up for, in small, everyday ways. Sunday breakfasts. Late-night movie marathons. Inside jokes no one else understood. It wasn't flashy or loud or Instagram-worthy. It was real. And real was enough. One afternoon in early autumn, I received a small envelope in the mail. Not a text, not an email, an actual handwritten letter. The handwriting was careful, like the writer didn't want to ruin it. It was from Ava. For a moment, I considered not opening it. But something in me, curiosity, growth, closure, made me sit down and carefully slide the letter out. It read,
Luna.
I know you don't owe me anything, not even your time to read this. But I wanted to tell you I'm trying. I started therapy. I'm working through things I ignored for years. I'm learning why I needed attention so badly, why I treated everything like competition. I don't expect to be forgiven. I just hope one day I'm someone worthy of it.
Ava.
I read it twice. Not because it changed everything, but because it showed effort. Effort was new. Effort was something I'd never seen from her before. I didn't respond right away. I didn't rush to call or meet or rebuild something that needed time. Instead, I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, not in anger, not in avoidance, but in respect for the process. Healing takes time. And this time I wasn't rushing anything. Thanksgiving came around again 1 year after the dinner that shattered everything. This year, Ethan and I hosted a small Friendsgiving. Just a few close people, genuine people, the kind who don't measure your worth by attention or convenience. The house smelled like cinnamon and rosemary. Laughter echoed through the living room. Someone spilled wine, and everyone laughed instead of panicking. It felt warm, not because everyone shared DNA, but because everyone shared sincerity. Halfway through dinner, Ethan gently tapped his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said, smiling at me. "To Luna, who finally realizes she deserves to be surrounded by love, not just family." I felt tears prick my eyes, not the painful kind, but the grateful kind. Everyone raised their glasses. To Luna. I had never heard my name spoken with that much respect. Not once in all the years of trying. And in that moment, I knew I didn't lose a family. I stopped chasing the wrong one. Later that night, after everyone left and the house was quiet again, I stood by the window and watched soft flakes of early snow fall to the ground. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. Not because everything worked out perfectly. Not because revenge was loud or dramatic. Not because karma struck like lightning.
No.
The revenge was quieter. It was in the life I built without needing their validation. It was in the boundaries I set without guilt. It was in the peace I earned without permission. Months later, Ava texted me again, short, respectful, patient.
No rules.
No pressure. But when you're ready, I'd like to see you. And for the first time since everything happened, I didn't feel dread. I didn't feel anger. I felt possibility. Because forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it simply stops it from controlling the future. So I typed back. Someday. Not yet. But maybe. And that wasn't a step backward. It was a step forward. On my terms. My name is Luna, and if there's anything I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't destroying someone. Sometimes the strongest revenge is learning to live a life so full, so peaceful, so self-created, that the people who once underestimated you have no place in it, unless they earn their way back. So, that's how everything changed. If you made it this far, thank you. Stories like mine aren't always easy to tell, but sometimes they remind us that silence isn't strength, speaking up is. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you never miss another story just like this one. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay strong, stay smart, and never underestimate quiet people.